American Top 40.
It's travel time on American Top 40, our world tour. The favorite American recording acts as voted by radio programmers and disc jockeys around the world. I'm Shadoe Stevens. We're up to a band from Marin County, California, just north of San Francisco. Their leader told us he remembers his first European jaunt. It was years before he and his band made news, long before. But that's when he learned to play harmonica.
That's what I really did. I played in Europe, sort of panhandling, or playing on street corners, rather, and playing in, in Hyde Park in England and all the way through Spain and France and down south of Morocco and so on. And in Spain, for example, it was a long time with long hair. In those days, this is 1968, you couldn't get a ride. And so, it would be literally 10 hours by the side of the road with your thumb out. So I played harp the whole time. No wonder I got pretty good.
These days his hair is shorter, and he does all his riding up and down the charts with his band. The world votes him in at number 6 from Marin County, California. Huey Lewis in the news.
The power of love is a curious thing. And you don't need money, don't take fame, but it might just save your life. That's the power of love.
Casey's Top 40.
Now, let's answer that question from a listener. She wants to know, who is the top male group of the 1980s? Well, Madeline, let's count down the top 3. The third most successful male group on the charts of the 80s is the band from the Windy City that titles their albums with just numbers. They're the band called Chicago. At number 2 is the San Francisco-based band that featured the soaring vocals of Steve Perry and the blazing guitar work of Neil Schon, the band Journey. And the top male group of the 80s? Well, like Journey, this band hails from the San Francisco Bay Area. They first played together when a singer and harmonica player named Hugh Anthony Cregg III asked some friends to join him on stage for the weekly jam session at a local club. That group's barn-burning rock and roll spiced with a touch of R&B eventually brought them a record contract. And in 1982, they scored the first of their 15 top 40 hits. Since then, they've hit with smashes like The Power of Love and Stuck With You. Of course, by that time, we all knew Hugh Anthony Cregg III by his more down-to-earth name, Huey Lewis. The number 1 male group of the 80s, Huey Lewis and the News. Good question. Thanks for writing in. Now, on with the countdown.
Casey's Top 40.
I'm Casey Kasem. These are the nation's hottest hits by the world's hottest stars. Leaping 7 notches to number 25 is a band known for the celebrity softball games they play on the road and for their snappy uniforms. They don't often win. Team captain Huey Lewis admits, we look a lot better than we play. But in spite of their lack of success on the field, Huey and the News keep hammering home the hits on the charts.
Casey's Top 40.
Now we're up to the latest hit for a man who realized what he wanted to do with his life while stranded on a roadside in Ireland. His name is Hugh Anthony Cregg III, and after graduating from high school in Northern California, he decided to take some time off before entering engineering school at Cornell University. With a pack on his back and a harmonica in his pocket, he headed across the Atlantic. For months, he hitchhiked through Europe, seeing the sights and thinking about things. One day, he found himself waiting for a ride on a back road in Ireland. A farmer had dropped him off at a crossroads. It was cold and it was rainy. As far as Hugh Cregg could see in every direction, there was nothing but potato fields. Not a car was in sight. The minutes turned into hours, and then night fell. Hugh had nowhere to go, so he just sat there in the rain, thinking and playing his harmonica. He thought about his life, about engineering, and about music. And he started formulating a plan to devote himself to the thing he loved most, a plan to pursue a life in rock and roll. The next morning, when Hugh Cregg finally got a lift back to civilization, he headed straight back to California to put his plan into action. Well, it took Hugh Cregg III more than a decade to make his dreams reality. But when he finally did, he became a star named Huey Lewis.
AT40 Music. From our Good Samaritan file, kudos have to be shared this week by Huey Lewis and the News and Rush. Huey and the boys recently played a private party in San Francisco and donated their fee, $250,000, to the AIDS program at San Francisco General Hospital.
Casey's biggest hits.
1 year ago this week, one of the biggest hits in the USA was Couple Days Off. by a band whose first single was a double flop. They put it out at the height of the disco era back in 1979. The single was called Exo Disco because it was a disco version of the theme from the movie Exodus. As is often the case with unusual records, it could have hit big or been a big flop. And in this case, it hardly sold a copy. But that was a small problem compared to the fact that at the time, this group called itself American Express. And when Exo Disco came out, the real American Express sent them a letter telling them they had about 1 minute to lose the name. Which they did, pronto. 1 year ago this week, under the new name they chose, they had one of the biggest non-disco hits in the USA.
Casey's Top 40.
Well, now we're up to a brand new hit by Huey Lewis and the News. It's from a CD that started out as a collection of their own greatest hits and ended up a collection of everyone else's greatest hits. The original plan was for the band to gather the most popular songs they had released over the years and then add 2 new songs to fill out a CD. So one night they got together to decide which 2 new songs they'd pick to record. They gathered at sax player Johnny Cola's home because he had a small studio there. One of the members suggested they try to do Fats Domino's 1957 classic Blue Monday. So they picked up their instruments, and with the tape rolling, they started a jam. Huey and the group had a great time playing that rock and roll classic, and when they listened to the tape, they loved it. Then they started reminiscing about the music of their youth. One after another, they brought up great old songs that they loved, and one after another, the band jammed on them. This went on for hours and hours, long into the night, and gradually a brand new idea was born. They decided to put aside the idea of a greatest hits CD and instead did an album of remakes of 17 of their favorite old rock and roll and R&B songs, not just from the 50s but also the 60s and 70s. Over time, they gathered up their favorite oldies and recorded them, and the result is a CD of remakes they cleverly titled 4 Chords and Several Years Ago. This week, the first single from that CD enters the survey at number 37. On Casey's Top 40, here's Huey Lewis and the News with their 1994 version of the 1975 Grand Funk hit, She's Some Kind of Wonderful.
I don't need whole lots of money. I got everything that a man could want. I got more than I could ask for.
Casey's Top 40.